Yeah. Okay.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning, Harvey. Okay, we're just getting started.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
How is Lee doing?
She could be better, but she's getting along. Much
Okay,
better.
let's hear a Schlemer from us, okay?
I figured I'd stay away, this way. Just
Okay.
I'm okay. You know,
Schlemer from us, all right?
I will. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll tell her.
Our learning sponsors, many friends of Stephen Vigdal, Ezech Nishmat Simcha Melech Ben Meir Leib Halevi, friends of Marcy Kurtz, in memory of her great niece, Leah Bracha, Isaac and Evelyn Blachor, in memory of his sister, Chaya Rachel Bas Isser, friends of Leonie Meiselman, Leah Sabu Bas Chanuk Zundel, a month of learning by Charlie Gelfenstein, in memory of his mother, Dacia Gilbert Meir Halevi, and his father, Meir Ben Yaakov, Chaim and Phyllis Reese, in memory of his father, Mordechai Ben Yom Tov Lipa, Isaac and Evelyn Blachor, in memory of his mother, Zissel Bas Chaim Yitzchak, friends of Milton Meller, in honor of his second bar mitzvah. A week of learning by Susan Fruchter Kramer, in memory of her late husband, Rav Shmuel Aaron Ben Ephraim Fischel, Shoshana Berger, in memory of her father, Tzvi Ben Shragadov HaKohen. Today being the 21st, we also have a day of learning by Susan and Ira Schwartz, in memory of her father, Moshe Ben Shammai. May the Shammais have an aliyah, crank refiel, Rabbi Yisrael Shem Atzmi, Lechol Ben Israel, good Ben Shkiah. Heshi should put up some sort of notice as well, okay, because there have been people coming in knowing that the coffee is here. You got from Gary. Okay, but I'm saying some people who come to learn later in the morning.
Put up, if you're not an annual, leave $1, because there's a guy that comes in every now.
We have the old document.
I understand, so I'm suggesting you do that again.
Thank you. Right, Heshi will.
And I'll empty it.
The pot, you're gonna use the pot?
It's legal medicinal.
Oh, yeah.
Pot is like a carbon.
I can imagine a bunch of Kohanim,
Well, you can't drink. It doesn't say anything about you can't take a Coke.
Okay.
You know that I was talking to someone this morning. When I was a little kid, I wanted to grow up to be a Kohen. And my mother said I should be a surgeon instead. You make more money cutting up people than you do cutting up livestock.
Okay. All right, where are we? On Kaf Zion, is that we are? Kaf Vav? Okay. Today's stuff is Kaf Zion, and we got sort of to the top, right?
We actually went over.
Right. So I just want to go back very quickly, okay, to the bottom, real quick, in the bottom of Kaf Vav Amud Beis. Rav Natan Omer Yesh Neder Shemikzato Mutar Mikzato Asur. Okay, so Rav Natan is going to give another challenge to Rava. He says there are vows in which part of it is permitted, part in situation is forbidden. Ketzad, how is that possible? Nadar min hakalkala, the person made a vow regarding a basket of figs, right? And we go top back to Kaf Zayin Amud Aleph, right? Va'ayuba benot shuach, and we said that they were superior. We use that even though there's a problem with the language of benot shuach there, okay? Of superior figs in the basket. Va'amar ilu hayiti yodea shebenot shuach b'tocha, had I known that there were these superior quality figs in the basket, lo hayiti no there, I wouldn't have made this vow. Al kalkala asura, the basket, in other words, those other figs in the basket are prohibited. Benot shuach mutarot, and those particular superior quality figs are acceptable. Ad sheba Rabbi Akiva, until Rabbi Akiva him v'li made neder shehutar mikzato hutar kulo. Okay, that where one exempts part of a vow, the entire kitten caboodle, so to speak, is also exempt. Okay, that's where we stopped yesterday. Okay, and right, so now we go on a continuation of the challenge to Rav. My love de Amar, was it not that he said, Ilu hayiti yodea shebenot shuach b'tocha. Okay, were it not the fact that I had known that, okay, had I known that the superior figs were in this basket, hayiti omer, I would have said, right, ta'enim shchorot ulevanot asurot. The black and the white figs are forbidden.
Which is now a new use.
Okay, right? Benot shuach mutarot. And then would the benot shuach be permitted? So, yeah, so notice number one, as Michael points out, it's a different method of expressing the vow. And we've already had this issue of where there's a different expression of the vow that seems to make the vow invalid. Okay? So the Gemara is raising here. Rabbi Akiva, but what?
What golden?
Like a golden,
Right.
right, that's standard figure.
Okay. Okay.
They're orange, the golden color. The
Okay.
normal figs are black.
Yeah, usually, right? But Rabbi Akiva, and this would seem to be according to the view of Rabbi Akiva, Uplige Rabbanan. But nevertheless, the rabbis disagree with him. No, says the Gemara. Ba'omer, it's when he says, the person making the vow, okay, saying, and now trying to clarify what the machloket is regarding the wording, onto whether it's on the entire phrase or it's only Rabbi Akiva's view. What is Rabbi Akiva's view really? Ba'omer, when he says, Ilu hayiti yodea, shebenot shuach betocha, had I known that those superior dates were in, hayiti omer, I would have said, kol hakalkala asura, ubenot shuach mutarot. Okay, that is exactly the same lashon that we see at the top of the Amud, which is the same.
Clearly said.
Except for the exclusion.
Except the point is that he clearly specifies that the benot shuach would be permitted. Okay, man tana laha, who then is the tana that taught this? The tana who taught, okay, Rabbanan, who taught the view of the rabbis. Nadar, okay, so that's the question. What is the machloket here between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Akiva? If the person did not change basically the language of their vow, except at the end where he specifies the
But he wants to be
exception.
mutter, right, the
Yeah,
exception.
the exception that's mutter, right? Okay, so what happens? So the Gemara continues. Nadar mechamisha b'nei adam ke'achad. An individual makes a vow, and this affects or impacts on 5 people as one, right? Hutar le'echad mehem. If he permits one of them, hutru lekulan, then all of them are permitted. Okay? Chutz me'echad mehem. If he permits all except one of them,
In the original statement.
okay? Hu mutar, that person then, okay, with the exception of one person, right? Hu mutar, he is permitted. Vehain asurin, then that individual who was in a sense the exception is permitted, and the others are all prohibited. Ila Rabbah, if we're going to say this is also the view that Rabbah had in terms of their explanation of Rabbi Akiva, and whether he held also like Rabbi Akiva, Reisha Rabbi Akiva, then the earlier part, the earlier statement, seems to follow the view of Rabbi Akiva, where there was no change in expression, remember? V'seifa divrei hakol. And the end part, okay, would seem to follow everybody. Ila Rabbah, if you're going to explain it the way Rava explains it, Seifa Rabbanan, then only the end part follows the Rabbanan, where the Rabbanan held, if I remember, like Rabbi Meir, who said you choose earlier the first expression, okay? And therefore they were saying that they're all prohibited, and they didn't include the statement about the Benot Shua. Varesha divrei hakol. And then the end part would be according to all. Okay? So we finished that particular Gemara. Okay. All right. Okay. So now what happens? Remember, we commented, and Michael brought up the point that yesterday, that there had been 4 different varieties of nidarim that the Mishnah way back on Kaf had spoken about. And my response to him was, that's correct, but we haven't begun to discuss in detail the one example of nidrei onsin. Now we're getting to a Mishnah that focuses on that example, okay? Now, that doesn't mean we didn't touch on it earlier, okay? But just as we saw the previous Mishnayot had,
Quoted this Mishnah.
okay, had made reference to it, now we're going to do a little more detail, okay? All right. I only mention this more because you remember originally the Gemara was structured so that all the Mishnayot were presented at the beginning of the Perek in total, and then the Gemara, okay, came afterwards. And only afterwards, when the Shas was set in a certain printed format, did they begin to break up the text so that you had Mishnah Gemara with Rashi on one side, Tosafot on the other, etc., etc. Okay? All right, so coming back now. Nidre onsin. So what about vows that are based on circumstances beyond one's control? And in keeping with that, remember our original Mishnah, and like Michael said, we touched on this, was it the question of a vow and inviting somebody, and then the person who was invited makes a vow, and the question of sickness, the question of the river overflowing. And again, Artsville pointed out it must have been a sudden situation with the river because it must have been snows. I don't know how often it snowed in Babylonia at the time, but
6 feet.
right? That's in Buffalo, not Babylonia. Okay.
Both start with B?
Okay. Nidre onsi. Hidiru chavero. Sheyochal etzlo. Okay, one made a vow regarding a friend or neighbor or colleague that he would eat with him. And what happened? Regarding the invitee, okay, v'chalahu o shechala beno, and his son became ill, or he himself became ill. O she'akvonaha, or the river overflowed because of, Art Scroll says, snows, sudden snows, melting snows, okay, and therefore he was not able to travel. Hare elu nidre onsin. These are examples of vows regarding beyond one's control. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to raise a number of questions. How do we define, or what makes a case? I'm going to use that language, okay, that we would define it as a divrei onsin. Okay, are there other examples? However, there may be, but not only, yes, but there may also be, we're going to get to a similar one. We're also going to be in a situation where the situation gets played out and the rabbis decide the validity of the case. So isn't that seem to negate what we're saying here, that the divrei onsin, nidrei onsin don't apply, aren't valid? If I can give you another example where there's onus, and in that case, the rabbis nevertheless said the situation was valid. Okay, how does that apply in our cases here? Okay, so the Gemara picks up. Hahu Gavra, there was a certain person, the eat peace zichute bebeidine, that person was in a court case, and he handed to the Beis Din the rights, his existing evidence, I'm going to say, okay, his existing evidence to prove regarding his rights to another person's property. Okay, But what happens? He wants to gather additional evidence. Okay? So in the meantime, he's given to the Beis Din his existing evidence to hold for him, and his vow is going to be as follows. Va'amar, ilo atina at tlatin yomin, if I don't come back within 30 days, okay, livatlun, okay, then I want you to, hani zichutai, I want you to nullify these existing rights, okay, documents, right, in that case. So if it was a monetary case, we could say what he gave was the receipt, so to speak, to the court, the shtar, whatever he case was, whatever kind of documentation, okay? By giving it up, it meant that if he was, that the other person could therefore claim the whole total amount. That's the part of the importance. Okay, so what happens? Itnis, he was constrained, velo ata, and he didn't come back within the 30-day period, right? Amar Rav Yehuna, says Rav Huna, batel zichutei. That implies that we nullify his documents, his rights, okay? Amar le Rava, and Rava disagrees with Rav Huna and says anusu, that he was constrained. There was a situation beyond his control. Va'anus rachmana patre. And according to the Torah, says Rava, we see that when it's beyond a person's control, he is, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, exempts him. Okay? Tichtiv, why? Based on the pasuk, ulena'ara lo ta'aseh davar. Okay? That's citing that pasuk in that situation. Okay, nothing is done to her, right? Because she was raped or whatever. Okay? V'chitema katla shani. And if you're going to want to say that in a situation of murder,
Death penalty,
okay, death penalty, right? Well, you got to have murder first,
not murder.
okay?
Death.
All right, well, that's what happens when you kill somebody, okay? You get the death penalty, all right? So
No,
the
this is a
implication,
rape case.
Yes,
the
well, it
man
could be.
gets punished, but the girl doesn't.
doesn't, that's the point.
So
She
we
was,
say, well,
she
maybe
was
it's a
honest.
different
So
story
maybe
where
it's a different
death.
case. Vahatna, but aren't we taught, even in that situation, Nidre onsin, hidiru chaverosh yochal etzlo, v'chalahu o shechala beno, o she'agvonahar, re'elu nidre onsin. So aren't we arguing then that based on our Mishnah, it would seem to imply that in this case, okay, that it's a
There's no
different
difference between
situation.
the
Court
Misa
should cut the guy
and
some
the
slack.
Dora.
Okay, that we can say in this case that even though there was a case where he could be tried for death penalty, nevertheless,
Back
onus
to the
is involved.
to the
right?
land. Since the guy can't come because of annoyingness, the court should cut him some slack. and
We're gonna get to
extend
that, right.
The
Okay.
time frame.
In other words, that Rava's argument is we do not remove his documents like Rav Huna is suggesting. Okay, that's the point. All right, Ula Rava, and therefore, according to Rava, how is this different? Okay, this case, okay, of something else that's taught, namely the following example. What about the fact where the husband says to his wife, this is your bill of divorce from now unless I don't come back within a year. And what happens then? He dies within that 12-month period. Hare ze get. In that case, we say the get is a valid get. Okay? So how is our situation any different than that? And there we say it's valid. Why don't we say in our case as well that it's valid? He didn't come back in the
Death is a
time
no
frame.
miss.
Okay? He didn't come back in time, and therefore he should lose his stuff. He should lose his documentation. which would side then with Rav Huna. Okay? Amai, why is that the case? Vahaminis itnis. But nevertheless, we say here too, the person has been constrained. It's
That's
beyond
what
his
it is.
control.
It's beyond his
Right.
control. Death is.
Right.
Right.
It's beyond his
No,
control. Death doesn't one doesn't anticipate death. That's the point. Amre, maybe we're going to say as follows: Dilma Shani Hat. Maybe it's different there in regards to the case of a get. Why? The Ivahaya the meat, because had he known he was going to die, right? Min la'alter havagamar v'yahiv gita. Maybe from that moment he wouldn't have said
Wouldn't have
the
made a
way the
conditional
neder, the
get.
way he did, in terms of if I don't come back, etc. He would have given her the get on the spot, so to speak. That's the point. Okay, let's go on now. So now there's going to come another challenge. Ma'ishna mihahu. So then, how is this different from another case? As follows: Da amar lahu. If they, when they said to them, I lo atina mikan at, right? Ad twat yomin lahavegita. If I don't come back within 30 days, this shall be a get.
Valid as
A
a
valid get
As of that moment. Okay. Ata upaske me'abra. He came, but there was a problem with the ferry, right? Maybe the ferry was on the other side of the river. Amar lahu, and he shouts, Chazu da'atai, Chazu da'atai. See, here I am. I've come back. I see, I've come back. Va'amar Shmuel. And Shmuel says, Lo shmei matai. This is not considered to be coming back. Amai, why? Vahaminis anis. But he's been honest.
It's on it beyond his control.
It's another
that he
case
can't
it's
get a
beyond
cause.
his control. There too. So the Gemara is going to say, hold on a second. Dilma unsa demigla shani. Perhaps an onus that might be foreseeable or predictable is a different situation.
bridge is off enough.
Okay? Right? Abra migle unsa. And the fact that the ferry goes back and forth and might not be there, okay, is something he should have kept in mind, lechatchila, and therefore that's why we're saying in this case it's valid. Okay? In other words, he should have taken into consideration all the possible options.
Reasonable possibilities.
Reasonable. Okay?
Not 6 feet.
Okay?
Or there's traffic on 95 and
In
you're
other
late
words-
for the airport. You have to leave early enough.
For-
This will be in effect if I don't come back after a year. She can't do anything with the get until after a year.
That's correct.
Right.
So what's the good?
The purpose is that she doesn't want to marry his brother.
It may be.
In other
That's
words, this
the-
means she's a Garusha. She won't become.
She's not subject to Yabam.
That's the whole rationale.
That's the pshat that they like to give to the piece. Okay? All right.
In other words, he expects to come home, but if he gets killed in the war, she won't have to.
Or,
fall to his
well,
brother.
doesn't have to be
I
dafka a war
understand, but
situation.
usually that's where it was.
That's,
He's going on a dangerous trip.
he's going on a,
Trip over the
Business
over the
trip,
sea,
whatever.
and
Exactly. That's the one I would relate to better. Okay? Okay, so now we're still dealing with this question of what about the
So where
fact
do we draw the line with
Okay.
owners?
we deal with it back with this our question. Rav Huna nevertheless said that that person, having given his documents to the court, he should lose his privileges there.
Now, there's a new
Okay.
use.
All right,
Wait,
versus
that's-
Rava's explanation. Okay, so what happens? And this is a rather for me, it was a problematic concept. I'll say it that way. Okay. Ula Rav Huna, says Rav Huna. What about his view?
That's what-
Michti. Since we're saying the follows, ismachtahi. Now, on the one hand, I have to be honest and tell you, I could not come up with a reasonable, a comfortable translation of the phrase for ismachta here.
He transferred to the court. He hung the documents on the court. If you
Okay,
want to try and keep it like an asmachta means hook. He
okay,
hung the, he gave over his rights to the court under certain circumstances.
Or
That's-
put it, he's hanging his words on the fact that he thinks he's gonna be back.
okay. All right, those are better explanations than I found either in Art Scroll or in Koran. Okay?
This seems to be the round section.
Okay, because one says it's going to be a reliance, another says it was a stipulation. Okay, but I like the explanation of that he's hanging it on the court's position. Okay, all right, ismachta, v'ismachta lo kanya, and we say that this reliance or this stipulation on the court, that's where okay, does not provide for acquisition. Shani, but maybe it's different here. Why? The mitpasak zechutan. Okay, because he has given these documents over to the court directly. Okay, vehecha de mitpasim lav ismachtehi. And are we saying then that when he delivers his documents and makes this neder to the court, okay, relying or stipulating there, okay, that's not a valid form of ismachta, okay? Vahatnan. And aren't we taught elsewhere the following? Misha para miktsat chovo. Okay, this is in regards to a modib miktsat situation. Okay, and that one admitted that they paid back part of what they owed. Vihishlish et shtaro. And then, in order to make sure that the malveh, okay, doesn't collect it all over again, okay, the loveh has given it to a third party.
They agree to let someone else.
Somebody
hold
has
the
hold,
shtar.
right, a third party. Okay, that's the case. Va'amar, and then he says, Im einani noten lo mikan ad shloshim yom. If I don't give him the money within
Rest of
30
the
days,
rest of the
the
money.
rest of the money, Chain lo shtaro,
Give them back
then
the shtar.
telling the third party, then give him that document by which he will be able to not only claim what money is still owed him, but reclaim even the amount
higher
of
amount.
money that was written on that
On the shtar.
on the shtar.
So he
Okay.
can double dip. So to speak.
So right, okay. He gives man velo natan.
Time comes.
Okay, time comes, did not give it to him. Rabbi Yossi Omer yoten yitain. According to Rabbi Yossi, the third party should give the document. Rabbi Yehuda Omer lo yitain. And Rabbi Yehuda says not to give.
And this is another asmachta case.
Okay, so this is a similar case to Asmachta. I was going to just simply, but notice to what degree it parallels our case between Rav Huna and Rava. That's, I feel,
These
is
are
important.
Tanoim,
All right, and these are Tanaim, right? So what happens? Va'amar Rav Nachman Amar Rabba Bar Avuha Amar Rav. Now in the name of Rav, Ein halacha Rabbi Yossi the Amar Ismachta Kanya. That according to Rav, who's the ultimate initial authority there, okay, the law is not like Rabbi Yossi, saying that you have to give. Why? Demar Ismachta Kanya, because he says, no, that reliance or stipulation on the court hanging on the courts, okay, is valid and does allow for acquisition. Okay, shaniha, but maybe it's different. Damar levatlan zechute, that the person had made the vow to nullify his merit, his privileges there,
The documentation.
the documentation. V'hilchata ismachta kan, and the law then is that we say that that reliance does allow for acquisition. V'hu de lo anis, but that's in a situation when he is not constrained by outside circumstances. V'hu de kanu mine bebeit din chashuv, and that's also based on the criteria where the whole interaction, the whole business deal had been done under the auspices of a very valid court. Okay, that's the point. Okay, I just want to go over just a tiny bit. Matnit Nanu Mishnah, okay, is going to deal with what situations it's permissible to actually go ahead and give a vow, okay? Particularly number one, when your life is at stake, okay? And number two, to prevent your property from unlawful seizure, okay? And are these questions of duress or not?
Those are 8 points in the next.
Yeah, no, I know that. So when we go into tomorrow, we'll go into this Mishnah, okay? But I want us to understand that these are different from the 4 examples that we saw earlier, okay? And we'll stop right there.
All right.
Thank you, Rabbi, very much.
Okay, take care.
Right.
We should know that 95 closes a lot.